It's one of the wildest years I've seen. The job reports indicate there's a strong job market, yet nobody can find a job, and companies just keep closing down. And now it seems that traditional fast food chains and restaurant chains can no longer survive in this new world. It seems that there's a shift in the market so significant that it's almost like when the car replaced the horse. But this time appears to be related to AI. The theory is that there's an AI boom causing jobs to be created because of it, while every other industry is falling apart. When we otherwise should be facing a severe recession or quite possibly depression, this boom is keeping us afloat, and GDP doesn't seem to want to go negative. And this seems like the perfect storm for the fast food industry. Folks just don't want to eat out. They want to save their money and eat at home. And for the restaurants, their operating costs are going up due to high inflation and supply chain issues. And they just don't have enough customers to make up for the increased operating costs. Unfortunately, this means that so many of us will lose our favorite shops in the months ahead. In 2022, Popeyes began closing some of its locations, and that trend seems to be continuing in 2023. Reports indicate that more closures are expected in the coming months. The chain is facing a significant challenge in California, where sales are declining and profits are shrinking. Additionally, the company is accused of violating child labor laws. Teenage employees filed complaints stating they were forced to work long hours and late shifts, even skipping school to do so. California labor laws restrict those under 18 years old from working more than 4 hours on a school day or past 11 p.m. Moreover, one of Popeye's largest franchises, Premier Cajun Kings, filed for bankruptcy recently. This unfortunate event occurred after the untimely passing of its founder amidst a challenging operating environment, leaving the company in a state of uncertainty. And Chick-Fil-A, one of the largest fast food chains in America, is facing challenges despite its size and reach. The chain has been affected by chicken shortages in the last few years, which is leading to price increases. Lower sales, higher costs, and continued supply chain issues continue to impact its profits. And as a result, several Chick-fil-A locations are permanently closing. Along with closures in Florida, Maryland, Alabama, Tennessee, and Missouri, the chain is shutting down its very first restaurant after more than 50 years. The specific reasons for these closures haven't been disclosed, but experts are saying that some locations haven't been profitable for at least 4 years. And Dunkin' Donuts is closing at least 450 outlets in the East Coast due to poor revenue. These outlets, located at gas stations, contributed less than 0.5% in the chain's sales. And the company is redirecting maintenance funds to more successful locations. Steak 'n Shake, a burger chain, faced financial challenges during the pandemic, leading to the closure of nearly 60 stores in 2019 and another 30 in 2022. Increased competition from larger chains like McDonald's and Burger King worsened profitability. By the way, I'll get to McDonald's in a second, because they ain't doing too good either, and there's a lot to cover on that front. But in 2023, Steak 'n Shake announced 130 closings, and that was due to poor sales, sanitation, and labor issues. But overall, the stores have been losing money for years. The biggest issue is that young people aged 18 to 24 are less inclined to go to a Steak 'n Steak restaurant than their equivalents decades ago. So this means that they're not going to turn into long-term customers. Steak 'n Shake is now focusing on improving stores that show good results, aiming to recover the financial losses that they've experienced in recent years. And Krispy Kreme. Since it opened in 1937, Krispy Kreme has become sort of like a household name, not only in the US, but in some cases around the world in different countries. Customers who visit these locations can watch donuts being made and enjoy them. And while they're still hot today, there are only 374 shops in the US, down from 1,000 just 10 years ago. And earlier this year, the chain confirmed 14 more closings for 2023. Rather than seeking to open and maintain Krispy Kreme franchises, they're choosing a new model, which may not be so bad. The focus will be on distributing fresh products to franchises in grocery stores and convenience stores across the country. And now we have Chuck E. Cheese, after filing and re-emerging from bankruptcy in 2022. Chuck E. Cheese is doing whatever they can to prevent further downturn as 2023 continues to intensify. It's predicting poor financial results at some of its locations. Chuck E. Cheese announced 45 closings this summer, which will affect stores in California, Florida, Massachusetts, Ohio, and Oklahoma. Next on my list is Quiznos, and this one is a doozy. It once had 5,000 locations across the country during its boom. This fast food company was extremely popular in the US, being the second biggest sandwich shop in the nation. And that was only behind Subway, but by 2010, only 2,800 shops were still operating. And then after the retail apocalypse began in 2017, closings started to accelerate, with only 670 stores left at that point. And then on top of that, the pandemic triggered another wave of store closings. At the beginning of last year, several franchises started to become insolvent and go bankrupt. Now this year, executives say that of the remaining 255 shops, Only 154 will stay open by the end of 2023. I must say, this is happening so fast. It's like the retail landscape is changing right before our eyes. It's almost like shopping areas that we become accustomed to will just become unrecognizable. There are others that are shutting down, such as Crystal. I've seen them before, but I've never been to them. And another chain called Pie 5 that I've never heard of. Although I don't know how, I've looked them up and I've seen they've been in locations across the country where I've lived. I guess it's because me being from New York, I automatically blank out pizza chains when I go outside of the New York area, and I just don't go to those pizza places. But dude, it's the weirdest thing. If you ever talk to a New Yorker, they'll tell you when they venture outside the New York area, like New York and surrounding states, and get pizza, they just can't stomach it. It tastes so different. It's like it's not even pizza. At least for me, it's not. Anyways, but among other closings, we're looking at Noodles & Company, closing 48 stores this summer. I've definitely been there. And another regional chain, primarily in Texas and surrounding states, is called Taco Bueno. They're closing up to 30 stores. And then Papa Murphy's, which is a take-and-bake pizza service, is closing 72 stores. And now for McDonald's. This is mind-blowing. The world's biggest fast food chain is facing problems as many franchisees in the US are very unhappy. They believe the company is heading in the wrong direction. One franchisee already filed for bankruptcy, and it's reported that about 30% of franchisees are currently unable to pay their debts. As a result, it's possible that by the end of 2023, around 2,000 McDonald's restaurants may close in U.S. cities. Regulators, labor disputes, and financial losses are putting pressure on the company, which has struggled with mismanagement for years. Experts say that for the first time in 4 decades, the number of McDonald's franchises is declining, and many of those are on the verge of bankruptcy. By the way, before I delve deeper into this McDonald's stuff, give me a like. I notice when I forget to remind people to give me a like in my videos, the video gets throttled by the algorithm, not getting more than like 20 views. So please, do me a solid. But franchisees are finding it difficult to cope with rising wages and increased costs from packaging and ingredients. This is something that has been cutting deep into profits. These franchisees operate 95% of the McDonald's locations in the US, generating about 70% of the company's revenue. The National Owners Association predicts that McDonald's restaurants, on average, will see a decline in cash flow for the second consecutive year in 2023. And McDonald's has acknowledged that inflation has trimmed profitability for franchisees last year. And executives argued that higher operating costs were necessary to keep the company aligned with its long-term expansion goals. The system is very lost at the moment, said another franchisee. Our menu boards are still bloated. We're still trying to be too many things to too many people. Things are broken. If this unrest leads long-term franchisees to throw in the towel, then it's an inherent operating risk for McDonald's as replacement franchisees may not be well capitalized. Newer franchisees would likely face higher borrowing costs. A franchisee stated that the company is in the throes of a deep depression and nothing is changing. And now roughly 30% of operators are insolvent. On top of that, more than 300 minors, including 2 10-year-olds who were unpaid, were found to be working in violation of U.S. labor laws. This was in restaurants across Kentucky and other states. McDonald's franchisees are facing significant financial penalties. The Department of Labor found that 305 children were illegally employed in 62 McDonald's across Indiana, Kentucky, Maryland, and Ohio. And then you have a new bill passed in Virginia and California that puts over 1,600 McDonald's restaurants at risk of closing. These 2 states alone account for 12% of all McDonald's in the U.S. The bill requires that fast food restaurants pay workers a minimum of $22 an hour, which of course is opposed by the industry. Paying such wages would increase the cost of eating at McDonald's by up to 20%. And it goes without saying that it will become unaffordable to eat at McDonald's for many customers. And to think, customers are already upset with skyrocketing prices. Some states charge $8 for a Big Mac compared to an average of just $4.95 back in 2020. The gist of it is that the chain has become wildly overpriced while quality is just deteriorating. If it can happen with McDonald's, we now see why it's happening with all the others. Once hailed for being cheap, their operating costs are becoming a luxury for consumers. And these consumers are no longer interested in consuming, it would seem. Hey, thanks for watching and for being a fan. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button.